Gold Rush. Rick Ness makes rash move, resulting in huge loss. Rick Ness has been hard at work this season, getting his mining up and going on Gold Rush. He even decided to sell everything to buy a $150,000 12-inch pump for his Monster Red. This was a huge expenditure, but he felt it would be what he needed to reach his goals. There was one problem: he bought the wrong pump. Here is what you need to know about Rick and his new struggles on Gold Rush. Rick Ness sold a lot to afford the $150,000 needed to buy a new pump for his Monster Red. That meant frustration when the pump wasn't doing what it was supposed to do when it was hooked up and working. The news became even worse when a team member came in and explained what was going wrong. After his team investigated the issue, they realized Rick made a costly mistake. He bought a volume pump instead of a pressure pump, which halted the gold mining operations. Rick's frustration when he realized he had made a huge mistake was heartbreaking for the miner, who had worked so hard to make this comeback to the industry. He planned to sluice 300 yards per hour to uncover 1,500 ounces of gold at the bottom of his Duncan Creek claim. Now, he might never reach that goal and could lose his claim completely. Rick was so downtrodden that he asked the camera crew to stop filming. "I need that money in my account. I need that money to pay bills, and here we are," he later said about the mistake. This isn't even the worst problem Rick Ness is facing right now on Gold Rush. His biggest problem came when the Yukon Water Board recently denied Ness' application for a new water license. This could have huge implications and end Rick's career as a miner completely. Without the water license, he is limited in what he can do at Duncan Creek. This could put a stop to his activities. However, there was one chance he had. All Rick needed to do was put together a plan to appease the board and show his site could accomplish what he planned. The problem now is that with his money disappearing and the bad by halting things, the chances to show the board he can do it is also disappearing. This latest mistake could mark the end of Rick on Gold Rush. What are your thoughts on Rick Ness and his struggles on Gold Rush this season? Let us know in the comments below. Sean S. Lilos has been a freelance writer for over 25 years and is a voting member of the Oklahoma Film Critics Circle. He is also a published author with a book about the Stephen King Dollar Baby filmmakers. Gold Rush. Rick Ness makes rash move, resulting in huge loss in the world of gold mining, where fortunes can be made or lost on a single decision. Rick Ness, one of the standout figures on the popular Discovery Channel show Gold Rush, has made a name for himself as a determined and ambitious miner. Known for his perseverance and a never-say-die attitude, Ness has experienced both triumphant victories and crushing setbacks over the years. However, it was a recent rash decision that would test his resolve more than ever before. A seemingly good opportunity turned into a catastrophic mistake that left him facing a massive financial loss. Rick's journey on Gold Rush began when he worked under the tutelage of legendary miner Parker Schnebel. Over the years, his role evolved from being a trusted foreman to becoming his own boss, taking the plunge and leading his own team of miners. His ambition, combined with the lessons he learned from Parker, allowed him to venture into new territories, searching for gold where others had failed. This drive for independence and success pushed Rick to take risks, some that would pay off handsomely, while others would lead him into trouble. In the beginning, Rick was able to carve out a modest yet steady success. His ability to identify potential mining sites, as well as his knack for managing operations, was one of the reasons he was able to establish himself as a reliable miner. However, as the pressure to perform mounted, Rick's decision-making started to waver, especially when a big payday seemed just within reach. The catalyst for Rick's rash decision came when he was presented with a new claim, an untested piece of land deep in the Yukon. On the surface, the promise of high-quality gold seemed irresistible. The land had been sitting idle for years, but a recent report indicated that it could potentially yield a significant amount of gold. Rick, eager to make a breakthrough and outdo his previous accomplishments, saw this as his golden opportunity to strike it big. The problem was that Rick was rushing into the decision without enough due diligence. His desire for success clouded his judgment, and he failed to properly assess the risks involved. The land might have had gold, but it had been overlooked for a reason. The area was far more difficult to mine than anyone anticipated, and Rick underestimated the challenges that came with it. But he plunged forward anyway, securing the claim and assembling a team. His decision would prove to be a disastrous one. The first few weeks of work were riddled with problems. Equipment malfunctioned, the terrain proved to be more treacherous than anticipated, and to make matters worse, the gold he was hoping for seemed to be nowhere in sight. Each setback put more pressure on Rick, but he refused to back down. He convinced himself that with a little more time and effort, the gold would surely reveal itself. As the weeks turned into months, the situation only worsened. Rick's financial situation began to unravel as he poured more money into the project without seeing any significant returns. The workers were growing frustrated, and tensions began to rise within the team. Rick's optimism started to erode, but his stubbornness kept him from acknowledging that he might have made a mistake. As the losses mounted, he doubled down, investing even more into the claim, convinced that the breakthrough was just around the corner. The moment of reckoning came when Rick's team uncovered a series of problems that had been lingering beneath the surface all along. The soil quality was far worse than expected, and the gold reserves were almost non-existent. Worse yet, a major piece of mining equipment broke down, and it became clear that fixing it would be far more expensive than anticipated. By the time Rick faced these harsh realities, it was too late. His rash decision to chase after an unproven claim had spiraled into a financial disaster. The loss Rick suffered was staggering. Not only had he sunk a massive amount of money into the project, but the costs of equipment repairs, labor, and the continuous operation of a mine that was not producing gold drained his resources completely. As his financial situation deteriorated, it became clear that this would be a setback unlike any he had faced before. Even the team members who had been loyal to him started questioning his leadership, and morale plummeted. The weight of the failed operation bore down on Rick, leaving him grappling with the consequences of his impulsive decision. For a man like Rick Ness, who had always prided himself on his ability to push through tough situations, the blow was especially hard. He was no stranger to hardship. After all, the world of gold mining is fraught with challenges. But this loss was more than just a temporary setback. It was a direct result of a hasty decision, one that could have been avoided if he had taken more time to evaluate the risks and carefully assess the claim before committing. In many ways, it served as a sobering reminder that even the most experienced miners can be blindsided by the lure of quick riches. Rick's struggle didn't end with the financial loss. The aftermath of his rash decision took an emotional toll on him as well. The failure shook his confidence, and he found himself questioning his abilities and his future in the mining industry. There were moments of doubt when he considered walking away from it all, but the fire that had driven him for so long refused to go out completely. He began to realize that while this experience had left him with nothing but a mountain of debt and frustration, it also provided him with a valuable lesson that could shape his future decisions. As the months went by, Rick started to rebuild. He took stock of the situation and began to analyze what went wrong. He sought advice from fellow miners, even from his former mentor, Parker Schnebel, who had his own share of failures along the way. With his support system back in place, Rick slowly began to regain his footing. While the road to recovery would not be easy, He understood that mistakes were part of the journey, and that learning from them was the only way forward. Though he had made a rash move that resulted in a huge loss, Ness was determined to rise from the ashes. The experience had humbled him and reminded him of the risks involved in the cutthroat world of gold mining. However, it also reignited his drive to succeed. With his renewed sense of purpose and the lessons he had learned, Rick set out to find a new claim, this time with a more measured approach. He knew the path to riches was rarely smooth, but as long as he kept his head level and his resolve strong, he was confident that he would eventually hit the gold he had been searching for all along. In the end, Rick Ness's story is one of resilience. Though his rash decision led to a huge loss, it also provided him with the wisdom to make better choices in the future. Like the gold he seeks, success in life often requires patience, persistence, and the ability to learn from mistakes. Rick's journey may have hit a major roadblock, but as long as he remains determined, his dreams of striking it rich are far from over.